on a wide range of issues.
I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Welcome to Unscripted.
Welcome to Associate, proudly brought to you by CBA TV.
Welcome to Artflex on CBA TV. This is Mutiu Olawi.
I welcome you to your show, our show, CBA TV News Review.
Our digital platforms engage users everywhere. We inform, educate, and entertain. We are CBA TV, the voice of East Africa.
The strength of any nation across the world is determined by its economy. Of course, when the economy is performing excellently, we say such nation is developing. And when the reverse is the case, we say such nation is grappling, to be on its feet. Now, there are many determinants to this, and Somaliland, as one of the nations across the world, also has its own economy. Now, the overview of its economy as we go into 2021 really matters, both on the micro and on the macro level. The challenges and the figures, the challenges and the prospects are one of the things that we want to look at on the program today. My name is Ajara Metijani. Welcome on the program. This is Your View with CBA TV live from our studio in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland. This program is actually reaching you live, and I promise you it's going to be a participatory experience. Of course, you can be part of the program as the program progresses on our Facebook, on our YouTube, on our social media platform handles. You can drop your comments and your views or your suggestion as the case is. Who do we have on set with us today? Of course, our guest is one of a kind when we are looking at economy, in general, and he's also a grandmaster when we're talking about, politics. Who are we talking about? Dr. Muhamad Guudle, a Somalilander, or should I say a Somaliland scholar specializing in economics and political science. He has PhD from the Department of Political Science and International Relations of Istanbul University. Muhammad's PhD research is all about international recognition, sovereignty, and democracy in the Horn of Africa. So there is so much to talk about if we begin to look at his resume. Of course, you can even earn a degree or master's even from his resume. I tell you, Dr. Guudle's research interests are focused on the political economy of unrecognized states, governance and democracy in the Horn of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, receive with me in the studio Dr. Muhamad Guudle. Happy to have you on set with us.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
Great.
You're looking fresh. All right, reading through your resume, a part of what you've achieved and your PhD thesis, I saw something that actually struck, me, and I was just going to ask you. Your thesis is to build an analytical framework for understanding unrecognized states as stable and viable entities that exist side by side with their home states. What do you mean? Can you give us, a little background of these statements?
Okay, my PhD thesis was about Somaliland. So, if you look the literature of unrecognized states, they are called different names. For example, they're called de jure states, unrecognized states. Some of them are called harsh names, like, for example, parallel states, terrorist states, like that. So
some call them
my
separatists.
Understanding,
Okay.
my argument was that to make the unrecognized states as a viable entities that can sometimes live side by side with their parent states, although Somaliland cannot be characterized, or Somalia cannot be characterized as a parent state for Somaliland because they were already merged in 1960. So my argument actually was to come up an idea of that Somaliland or the other, for example, viable unrecognized states can live side by side with their parent states.
Thank you very much. You've opened yet another conversation from there. Now, looking at the viable states, as you've suggested. Now, Somaliland being a nation state, okay, recognized or unrecognized, that's aside. We'll come back to that. Now, for every nation, any nation of the world to be on its feet, the economy of such nation has to be, booming, has to perform excellently. Now, overview or review of 2020 Somaliland economy in retrospect, there are a lot of the good sides, and of course there are other sides to it. Now, as we hop into 2021, of course, for any nation that is serious, you've got to project into the year ahead and plan, okay? And then there's always a saying, new year, new resolution. So the resolution for Somaliland state, as we hop into 2021, can you give us an overview of its economy on the micro and on the macro level?
Okay, historically, let me just go back to the history first before I try to say something about Somaliland economy. Somaliland was a British protectorate, and it merged with the Somali La Italiana, or the Italian Somaliland in 1960, and then it became a form of unified Somali Republic. And almost 29 years or 30 years later, that unification actually collapsed, and the Somali central government, the Somali Republic, actually collapsed it. And then in 1991, Somaliland people came together to create and to try to restructure and rebuild Somaliland. And then the economy was also, not only the political side, but the economy was also was built at that time. There were before they start to build the institutions, the government institutions, the social institutions, they started also to build to create kind of reconciliation between different clan lines in Somaliland who actually had some maybe disagreements. And then later on there were some clan conferences, and then there were different administrations from the first Abdurrahman Tour's administration, and then Igali's administration, and then later on there were some other also administrations till to this one, Musa Bihi's administration. So Somaliland was actually started to build itself from scratch, and it started everything from scratch, economically, politically, and socially. So if you just try to go back to your question, which was actually to make an overview about Somaliland economy, Somaliland is one of the poorest countries in the world. Actually, the fourth poorest country in the world, with a very low GDP per capita, which is almost maybe less than $400, which is one of the lowest in the world. But there are also other ways that we can look at. There are so many other opportunities. Somaliland has rely on its natural resources like livestock, and also the remittances that it is receiving from the outside world. So, but there is also an interesting question that came up into my mind, which is how Somaliland, which is unrecognized, which is not getting any support from international community, no formal aid is coming in, then how does it survive for 29 plus years? for its own. And then when I was doing my PhD thesis, that was also another topic I came up, and you can see in the last chapter of my PhD, which is written in Turkish language, but I have not published it yet in English. And so that itself also characterizes Somaliland as a self-relying economy. So Somaliland is relying more on its natural resources. And the good thing also is Somaliland is rely on private sector economy. If there is no private sector, Somaliland could have been maybe some other country or it goes some other way. But private sector is actually trying to create everything that Somaliland came in. The government economy is very less, but the private economy is actually huge. Okay. According to Warbaahin estimates, Somaliland's economy, or the GDP per capita, GDP of Somaliland is almost 1.5 or almost $2 billion. But 75% of that economy is actually in the private sector. So the public sector is, when you compare to that, is almost non-existent. And Somaliland government is trying to manage with a very limited budget, or maybe less than $300. So Somaliland economy is actually an outstanding when you see an entity or that's not getting formal recognition from the outside world and then surviving for 29 years plus. That also itself is actually making the Somaliland economy is unique economy.
Now, from the picture you were able to paint now, with a nation that is yet to be recognized, and yet for the past how many years now, it's been surviving on its own merit, surviving on the natural resources, and then surviving on the privatization, private sectors, springing up from. So, with that kind of economy, would you categorize it as a capitalized economy or free economy? Which category can we put it now?
From my personal experience and from my understanding and studying economics for the last 10, 11 years, I characterize Somaliland economy as a more on capitalized economy. And because it's more on, we cannot say Somaliland economy is kind of more a centralized economy. It's more on kind of free economy based on what we call in economics laissez-faire, which is actually that everybody's doing their own with no government involvement. The only thing that the government does is actually taxing those economies, and the taxing is also maybe have some poor mechanism, and tax collection is not that much effective in Somaliland these days. But everything is just run. According to different studies, Somaliland doing business is actually very considerate when you compare to some other countries in the Horn of Africa. Doing business in Somaliland is very effective, and it's no other. I can say there is no more restrictions in that. You can start your own business, you can create your own company. But in some other countries, if you compare to, for example, some other Eastern African countries, it might take some years or months to get a license, business license.
Okay, now before we begin to look at this area of taxation and of course starting your own business, it's pretty much of a subject that we cannot exhaust even in the next 1 or 2 hours. Okay, but let's just look at the remittance. Okay, from my own research, I realized that the chunk of the GDP, Somaliland GDP, per annum, remittance actually is taking a great percentage, so to say. So what is your view? What is the anatomy of this remittance? How does it work for Somaliland that is yet to be recognized? What is the link between the world and this unrecognized nation state, vis-a-vis, what the nation is generating, yearly?
According to different estimates and different studies, the remittance received of Somaliland is estimated almost around $1 billion per year. which is a very significant number of money receiving from the outside world, which is mostly money sending by Somalilanders living abroad, maybe in the European countries, in the US, in Canada, or maybe in the Gulf states. So that itself, I can say, Somaliland economy has been built with remittance. If there is no remittance, then the Somaliland economy would have been actually nothing. Not only I can say from my own studies in the Somaliland economy, we can say the Somaliland economy survived through three major different sectors.
Okay.
Remittance is one of the most significant one, livestock, and then we can say private sector economy, which is an internal economy creating in Somaliland. And the question of how does this unrecognized economy survive is actually also another academic question that may take for a long time to study. But these three,
components,
areas.
okay.
So I don't have a percentage estimate of how much Somaliland, but according to different studies, almost $1 billion US dollars is coming from abroad, which is actually a huge number. And mostly the business sector, or let's say private sector, which is created by maybe Somalilanders who came from abroad and then came back to the country trying to build up. Is also kind of, so you see the businesses created for the last 10-15 years are mostly created by diaspora people from outside, which are Somalilanders, maybe living in the US, Canada, Europe, and some other countries also.
It's a good thing that the economy is such a free economy, capitalized economy, that people don't really have to go through the thick and the thin of the process of having to acquire license before you begin this. Individuals, group of individuals are springing up with different ideas, and different businesses, different companies are springing up. But as you and I will understand, taxation is one thing that can either improve the growth of industries and businesses in any nation, in any environment, in any society, okay? And it is also one of the bane to which most of businesses, will fold up at the end of the day. Now, I really understand that this can also serve as a factor to discourage, aside from the fact that, external business people might also be skeptical about having to come over to establish business in Somaliland, for the fact that the nation is yet to be recognized. You understand? Nobody would they would be skeptical in the first instance. But for those people that are, doing it, for the the Somalilanders that have business ideas that may want to do it, and considering also the fact that tax or taxation forms a larger percentage of the revenue for the government, don't you think this is also affecting the lives and livelihood of the people in the country? The standard of living, I'm talking about the standard of living. For instance, I set up a business, let's say, to be producing this paper, and then I look for the money, and I just start the business, and of course the tax people come around, and then they come with all sort of taxes on me. Don't you think at the end of the day the masses would not bear the brunt? So how do you think this is affecting the economy of Somaliland, or vice versa?
For example, if you see in every economy in the world, taxation is a very important part, and we can say one of the major revenues of every government is taxation. But how does taxation is affecting Somalian economy is another question. And for my own analysis, 65% of Somaliland budget is coming from Berbera port. 65% of the
according to your own research?
Yes, according to different estimates.
Okay.
almost 65%, and maybe that's also an official government figure. 65% of the country's economy, especially Somaliland budget, is coming from the Berber port. So you can see that.
Let me take you by God. I read something from the site of, Somaliland Ministry of Finance, with regards to the 2021 annual budget, and from a lot of it's a quite number of cumbersome tables, figures and explanations, breakdown, from this and that, and I was able to extract from some of their submissions or postulations that like over 60% of the revenue of the government comes from taxation. Does it conform with your own submission that 60% or over 60% is coming from a port of Baraha?
I don't have the exact number, but in my own analysis, what I have known is that taxation is not that much effective in Somaliland. The government is not receiving all the supposed taxes that they should get. Big businesses are not paying taxes as required. Maybe they're paying overheads kind of numbers, but they're not exact. So people are not actually. The people don't usually understand, or they don't have the government doesn't have the capacity to tax all. So taxation is also one of the major challenges for receiving Somaliland economy. And that also may be affecting. So there is a small number of revenues coming from the tax, which is a less number. But the majority, when I'm saying tax, I'm talking about the inland, or what they can say.
Yes.
But when it comes to for example, the Berber port or maybe some other customers, the government is receiving a very good tax, but the inland revenue is actually very less. That itself also characterizes that how taxation is not actually supporting in Somaliland economy. But the government is trying to at least create the legislations, the laws, and all these things people should understand, and it even introduced different types of taxes, including the sales tax, income tax, maybe some other also form of taxes have already been introduced for the last 3-4 years. But it needs actually another arrangements.
Okay, we might get to the prospect. Okay, we're looking at it holistically, an overview of this of the economy and some of the challenges that that are bound. Of course, there are other areas to which we will still have to go, from livestock to agriculture and the rest of them. But before we do that, you're watching Your View with CBA TV, the voice of East Africa and beyond. And of course, we've been interacting with Dr. Muhamad Guudle, who is a Somaliland scholar specializing in economics and political science. We'll go for a short break now. When we return, we still have our guest in the studio. Stay with us.
Welcome to CBA News Bulletin. I am Hamse Dapchir.
You are watching CBA TV. I am Wangoingoge from Hargeisa.
Thank you for keeping it CBA TV. Reaching out to our global viewers through digital and television platforms from our 2 major broadcast centers and exclusive reporting from East Africa and beyond.
From the studio of CBA TV, the voice of East Africa and beyond, my name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani.
Join us in engaging talk shows and programs on a wide range of issues.
I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Welcome to Unscripted.
Welcome to Associate, proudly brought to you by CBA TV.
Welcome to Artflex on CBA TV. This is Mutiu Olawi.
I welcome you to your show, our show, CBA TV News Review.
Our digital platforms engage users everywhere. We inform, educate, and entertain. We are CBA TV, the voice of East Africa.
With CBA TV live from the studio of here in Somaliland, the capital of here in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland. I beg your pardon. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani, and of course, we're looking at overview of Somaliland economy as we go into 2021, and of course, we're looking at the challenges and prospects. We still have with us Dr. Muhamad Guudle. It's a pleasure having you once again.
Thank you very much.
Before we went for that break, you know, you talked briefly about the port of Berbera, to which the revenue of the nation is coming from. One of the major, I can say the backbone of the economy of Somaliland, according to what is being documented, is livestock. What is your view of this?
Yeah, livestock actually plays a significant role in Somalian economy, and it has also its own challenges for the last maybe 15, 20 years due to different reasons, and the Arabian countries who are mostly getting Somaliland livestock have already been banned, and then that affected also the local economy very much. So we can say that Somalian economy is actually will be nothing if there is no livestock production. That livestock itself is also having its own problems. And for example, there were several droughts. There were maybe some other also environmental change happened. That also will have a major impact on the livestock production. But it's, let's say that Somalian economy is mostly depending on the livestock. So livestock would be a great asset for Somalian economy.
Now, what's your conclusion, or what's your submission on the way these animals, these livestock, are being reared in this part of the world? You know, I have seen many documentaries across where, you know, in a region where drought has been experienced, you see people building colonies or ranch. But here, from the capital city of Somaliland, I get to see sheep around. You know, sometimes you see cows, sometimes camels from one corner to another. Sometimes even when you are driving, you know, these animals will just cross the road abruptly. More often times, this result into accident. You know. What do you think, or what's your take on this?
Livestock or animals who are living in the streets of the cities are very less when you compare to those who are living in the rural areas. So mostly the livestock which are used as a commercial or which are exported to Gulf countries are mostly from the rural areas. And do you know that Somaliland people, there are different studies or estimates saying that almost 60% of the Somaliland people are living in the rural areas. So that itself also an important way. So just few animals are not just living in the streets, but majority of them are actually. I
just want you to pass a comment briefly on how to improve. You understand? I'm not saying they are not gotten from rural areas, or probably they are being deposited in the urban cities and, you know, whatever. But how do we improve this aspect of them, since it forms the backbone of the economy of the nation? So how do you think we can do it? How can we do it differently?
Since the livestock production is playing a significant role in Somalian economy, then it is according to, and it's up to the institutions, like let's say government institution, the Ministry of Livestock should create a policy or strategy to adopt a new ways of implementing or increasing the livestock production, whether it is improving the lives of the rural livelihood, is creating and strategy to develop or to produce more livestock for the next coming years. So it's just not only the rural, and the rural community are also themselves having their own problems. Sometimes they're not getting enough rain, so droughts are coming back. No support from the government. They're not getting vaccinations for the animals. Sometimes they're not getting pesticides, and then sometimes the crops are dying. There is no pastures, and one of the other major challenges for the Somaliland livestock production is also related to that people who are rearing this kind of are mostly on a mobile situation. They're moving from one place to another. Nomads. They're looking for pasture, water. They're always on the road. They're always traveling. They're always traveling or moving around. So, and then when you see in the modern world how the livestock is reared is completely different. We use kind of a traditional way of rearing animals. But if you have, for example, if you use the technology, if you use the food technologies, then you can use a very limited number of livestock with the maximum production. So those technologies should also be introduced in the Somaliland livestock production process.
Okay. There are other areas. I'm afraid the time might cheat on us. Okay, let's just touch 2 areas and then we can wrap this section. Agriculture is one major factors of economic diversification. I've known countries, nations of the world that majorly depends on gas. Some depend on crude oil, you understand? And for many reasons, when this economy or the market for this product, like gas or crude oil, falls, definitely it affects their economy. Now, in 2020, the adverse effect of pandemic that is ravaging across the world really affected, and is still affecting many economies of the world, including Somaliland. Now, speaking of livestock now, it actually affected the export of this product. Now, how do you think Somaliland as a nation state can diversify in the area of agriculture and mining? What's your view on this?
When we see the agriculture as a component of Somaliland economy, it is very less. Okay. There is no actually commercialized type of agriculture in Somaliland. Maybe the only places that people do agriculture production is more for subsistence, for surviving.
What do you think is the reason for this?
The reason is there are some arable areas that people can cultivate more on different products, but maybe people are not trained for, or people are not interested more on, the people are just focused more on the livestock production, rather they just leave the agricultural behind. And it needs actually another way to understand that this is actually a very major component. If we try to improve also the agriculture, that could be another fourth factor, including the others. So let's say remittance, livestock, private sector economy, and then if the agriculture came on board, that would also create the prosperity of the economy. It might create also. How do
you advise governments to create to develop a policy, still channeling it towards diversification? There are large percentage of the population of youth in the country that are still jobless. Okay, the unemployment rate is pretty much a little bit high. Understand? How would you advise government to look at this sector of the economy, especially the agriculture, to be able to engage the teeming youth, the population of the teeming youth?
Actually, there might be some policies which have already been on the table. I don't know, but the government is trying to create some strategies and policies to implement on agricultural sector of Somaliland. But agriculture is not playing an important role now in the economy. That will have, it is own effect. If the agriculture could have been improved, that will also affect the Somaliland economy. Somaliland's economy is one of the poorest economy in the world. 1.4 billion, or let's say 1.5 billion GDP. 1.5 billion is just a very small economy. Maybe a company in Kenya or maybe a company in some other East African country creates maybe 1.4 billion revenue.
That might not even be enough for a country.
Yeah, how the Somaliland is trying to manage, even if you see the budget itself, 280 million, let's say, or $300 million. How does the Somaliland economy would survive with $300 million US dollars? How does someone manage an economy with approximately 4 million people with a 380 million budget, which is very less? So there are a lot of things that we can improve, a lot of things that we can do for this. So a lot of job has not been done when you see especially from the society or from the economy, from the government. So there are a lot of things to be implemented.
I strongly believe that every nation of the world, any landmass that you find yourself, there are abundant deposited of mineral resources. What's your view of this aspect of the economy in Somaliland? Has it been judiciously
minerals
exploited?
When you see the minerals, I believe that there are a lot of abundant natural resource, especially a lot of unique mineral in Somaliland, but that's not been, it still has not been
tapped into.
Yeah, there are a few companies, maybe they're licensed with license or without license, or operating in Somaliland.
Like General Energy?
That's for oil exploration, I think, but I'm not sure whether they were dealing with the mining. They were working with the Ministry of Energy, and they were dealing with the oil exploration for the last maybe 5-10 years. I'm not sure exactly, but when it comes to mining, there are few companies with some of them have licenses are trying to export, but it's not that much effective now. Maybe I don't know, due to licenses or due to technology, or copper, for example, is very abundant in Somaliland, which is one of the best qualities in the world. If you see some western regions in Somaliland, or maybe some eastern regions, copper or mercury, or sometimes you might find gold. There are golden mining areas in Senag region. But there are a lot of, Somaliland is rich when it comes to natural resources. Rich on even the reservoirs of water is also extremely rich. But who is going to produce all those things? How the Somaliland community will? The whole world knows that Somaliland is in a rich area, rich in terms of natural resources. Even when you see the sun energy light, you can see that Somaliland has an abundant natural resources, which is not just only mining, but there's livestock, clean water. 12 months of the year you will see sun, which is also a very important part of the economy.
Okay, thank you so very much for lending your voice on the subject matter. I just want you to briefly say something about tourism. I think it's one of the little components that form that work together to form the economy of the nation.
Yeah.
Can you say about
tourism? Yeah, there are so many places that in Somalia which is good for tourism, but tourism has also been infested, I can say, in Somaliland economy. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so very much. That has been the voice of Dr. Muhamad Guudle, a soft speaker, but with huge points on each of the points or questions raised, and he's been doing justice to the subject matter, which is overview of Somaliland's economy as we go into 2021, challenges and prospects. Thank you so much. We must really appreciate you. Some of the gray areas which you touched, and then some of the recommendations and suggestions, that you came up with. We really appreciate that. Some of the time, I'm sure for the want of time now, we do not have that luxury of time to begin to explore other areas. But I'm sure when we call on you, all the time, maybe on another topic different from this one, you will oblige us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, viewer. In the last how many minutes now, we've been interacting with our guest in the studio, and I'm sure you've been following. And most of the comments that you dropped will do justice to that. This is where we draw the content on today's episode of the program Your View with CBA TV, the voice of East Africa and beyond. Next time we'll come your way, please do join us. Bye for now. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani.